Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Okay, welcome once again to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. And I have the wrong thing up. That shouldn't be Photoshop, that should be Q&A. There we go. I knew I forgot something. Today is Q&A. So hopefully you got some questions for me. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short, very boring session.
Hey, Doug,
Yeah, Bill.
can I share the screen for a minute?
Sure.
1 second, let me get this. And let me come back to here. No, that didn't work. Hold on a second, hold on. Oh, let's see what's going on. I will share the screen. And we'll share that. You see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's see.
Do you recognize this picture?
Yeah. That's a long time ago. Let me.
This was 30 years ago. This was 10 years ago, and you did this for what's the name of the group? Mid Connecticut Photography. Anyways, I'm giving a just a little speech on the exposure triangle at the Plainville Senior Center this week, and I'm going to use this picture.
Contact me. If you want, I'll share with you my slides. I should have them somewhere.
We only meet for an hour, so
yeah. Well, you can pull whatever slides you want.
Okay, great, perfect. Okay.
So okay.
We'll talk after this.
All right, no problem. I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right. So, all right, just a little housekeeping. First off, let's go over what's going on. All right, so the multiplicity photo shoot, I discussed this a while back. It was in the planning. I have a tentative date, but I have to check a couple other groups first. But I'm looking to do something July 15th at Hubbard Park in Meriden for the multiplicity photo shoot. And I also have a tentative time of 4 o'clock. That way it'll give us time to kind of do what I have, but what we need to do to get our shots. But it also puts us, a little bit more towards that golden hour if anybody wants to stick around afterwards and, get some shots around the park or whatever. So trying to make it as fun as possible for everybody. Also coming up, the CTPPA is doing another photo walk. This time it's going to be at Meg's Point in Meriden, the beach there.
Madison, Hammonasset.
Yeah, Hammonasset State Park.
In Madison, not Meriden.
Madison, yeah. Did I say Meriden? Oh, I'm sorry. I had Hubbard Park in my mind. You're right. Madison at Hammonasset Beach. When you drive in, Meg's Point is like the far point, but it's nice because there's a little cliff and there's an overlook, and it's a beautiful little section of the beach. They're going to be meeting at 2 o'clock. All right. I did have a discussion with the organizer saying, hey, a lot of people said, why can't you do these on the weekend? And I got a little pushback saying, well, a lot of our members are professional working photographers and their busiest time is on the weekend. So, but my rebuttal for that is, well, out of all the ones we've had, only a very small handful of our members have actually shown up. So The majority have been you guys. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. And I'm doing an online session for CTPPA on Adobe Lightroom. I know you guys don't need it, but if you know anybody in any of the camera groups that are on the fence about whether they should get into Lightroom, have them check it out. Maybe it'll sway them one way or the other. Okay. So anyway, that's pretty much it for up and coming stuff. And of course, the CTPPA convention is on the 30th. So 30th? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Anyway. So today is photo Q&A. I just wanted to share a quick little thought before we get into your questions. A while back, I had proposed the idea of going through your back catalog, pulling out some images to kind of put together into a little photo book that you can publish for yourself. Well, I've been going through my past catalog and I've been uncovering some few little nuggets, a lot of projects that I started, kind of tinkered around with, for some reason wasn't too happy with and kind of like abandoned. So it just goes to show that, you know, looking back through your old images, you may uncover something that you've forgotten about. I just recently, I just posted one where I did this kind of like a lipstick photo shoot that I originally intended. It was originally intended as an exercise in using some props that I bought, and just to get an idea of how they worked and interacted into a little set that I made up. And I kind of liked the results, and I said, you know, I'm gonna, you know, do a full edit and just post it on my website in my portfolio. I never finished it for one reason or another. I have no clue what prevented me from completing it. I think I had posted one in development photo way back when, but never finished it. So lo and behold, I came across it. I said, you know what, let's just put an end to this and finish it and get it in the portfolio. And I posted it to Facebook today. So I just wanted to, one, remind you about, you know, the little photo project, you know, go through, pick out images to put together in the book. And two, just to kind of say, hey, you know, go back through. You never know what you're going to find. It may surprise you. The other aspect for that I've mentioned in the past that I'm going to reiterate again here is, as time goes on, your skill level increases, hopefully, right? So what you've learned today, you can take and apply to some of your more favorite images that you've edited in the past. And it's kind of like a fun exercise to see what you did back then and compare what you're able to do today. So that's another kind of incentive to kind of go through your old catalog and pick out some of your more favorite images that you've done in the past. Because if they were your favorite images back then, can you imagine what they would be today with a little bit more skill in your editing capabilities? So that's my challenge to you, not only for the book, but, you know, for yourself. And as always, I encourage you to go ahead and print them out nice and large, get them framed and hang them on your wall. Don't just let them sit on the computer, okay? Anyway, so that's my little soapbox for today. So we will open it up to the floor if anybody has any questions on anything, either editing, camera, lighting, you know, general stuff.
I have a question to start off. And
Oh.
It comes off of your book project. Excuse me. So own schedule. So here's, and what I've done so far, after your thing, I went around and I started making some collections, not smart collections, but just collections.
Right.
And unfortunately, my problem is I've got like 4 or 5 books I want to do. So I know it's part of it is just focusing on one, but with the idea that as I'm going through some of these in Lightroom, so here's my question. Let's say I have an image that I like you just mentioned, and I want to do something with it, put it in a book.
Right.
But I also want to actually put it in another book. So this thing is destined for 2 books, let's say. So I'm thinking about workflow in terms of, I've got this image and I'm going to do something with it for this book, and I'm going to do something different for this other book. And I guess as far as I know in Lightroom, this idea, so do I need to make a copy, a virtual copy? Because what I've learned so far is when you do this collection business, it sort of is in 2 places.
Right.
And so anyway, that's kind of my wondering about the best way to approach that.
Yeah, so collections can get a little tricky.
And I guess, Doug, when I ask this question, maybe what I'm trying to do with, like 5 or 6 different books and that type of thing, that collection's the best way to go.
Yeah, so what I would do is make a collection group and call it book projects. And then within this group, just have a collection for each book, and title it according to, what the contents of the book is, whatever, you want to call it. When it comes to duplicate images, especially those where you're going to use the same image, but maybe do different editing or maybe a different aspect cropping or whatever it is, I suggest creating a virtual copy, all right, and making your changes accordingly to that virtual copy. Now, here's the problem. And I haven't tried it out, so I guess right now it's a good time to try it out. Let's see if we can figure this out. Let's look. I'm just going to use this. We'll use the fruit splash here that I posted recently. So I have this image and I say, you know what, I want to use it, but in 2 different books. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a different aspect ratio in the 2 books. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a virtual copy. And on the second copy, what I will do is I will change the aspect ratio from that to, let's say I want to do a nice kind of like 2-page truck, have it go across 2 pages. Okay, so here, let's see. So here are the 2 images. All right, so let me go over to collections, and we'll call this book project. Let me rename that book project 1. Rename, and I'm going to add a collection. We'll call it book project 2. Okay. All right, book project 1. Oh, and this is a, I think this is a smart collection. So, all right, let me change that back. We'll create another collection, regular collection, book project 1. Okay, there we go. Book project 1 and book project 2. All right. And let's say I want, where's my, go back to my folders. Oops. Fruit splash. Okay, and I want to add this big one to my book projects one. So I'm going to add it, add selected photo to this collection. Okay. And this second one, I'm going to add, which is a virtual copy, I'm going to add to selected photo collection. Okay, let's see what happens. This one and this. Okay, so yeah, you can do you can hold virtual copies in the different locations. Okay, so what I suggest is for every book that's going to have something different, create a virtual a virtual copy. Now, here is another suggestion I would say. Now, obviously, both of these, one is a virtual copy of the original. Okay. So that means the virtual copy is going to reside in this, along with the original. So here it is. And now I can kind of rely on my memory to say which one is for which book. But the other thing you can do is say, okay, you know what? All right, take my instance, for example. All right. I use flags to pick the images that I want to edit. Okay. So flags are out. And flags, it's either on or off. It's only 2 states. There's also color labels. All right. I use color labels a lot in order to keep track of what images I've edited, what images have not been edited, and what images are going to go to kind of various places. All right. It's a bit convoluted, but it makes sense in my head. The only thing I'm not using are the star ratings. All right. For some reason, I have an aversion to star ratings. I never liked them, never used them. All right. So that means for me, star ratings are blank. They're available. So I can use the star ratings to differentiate between the 2 collections. So if I got multiple books, in this case I have book 1 and book 2, I can say, okay, this image here, the full size one, that is going in book 1, so I'll give it a single star. And then this one that's kind of like this panorama, that one's going to be used in book number 2, so I'll give it 2 stars. So now, when I go to the folder and I see both side by side, I have a quick little indicator that's going to kind of like trigger my memory as I'm working on them. And it says, okay, I need to work on the one for it, book number 2. So I'll make sure that I pick the correct one rather than having to flip back and forth and trying to figure out which one is which. Okay. The other thing you can do, all right, is if you look over in all the way over on the right-hand side underneath metadata, there's a thing called comments. All right. You're more than welcome to put in comments into that section. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Comments not supported. Why not? Why are comments not supported? Do I have to be? Oh, okay. Comments not supported, and I don't know why. All right, so I take that back. Don't know why comments are not supported here. Okay. I take it back. I'll have to look into that. But anyway. So you can use, if you don't want to use the stars, if you say, I use stars for whatever. So what you can do is just assign a color for book 1 and a color for book 2 and make sure that, you apply the correct color to your virtual copies. That's something else that, you might want to do. All right. So hopefully that makes a little sense. All right. So if you decide to use colors, the nice thing is if you look, all right, this one here, it says classroom tutorial images. If you notice, there is a color there, all right, and then right below it, the one that says general tutorials, there's a color there, okay. These are just, I put these there so I can very quickly identify those two and go to them really quickly. But there's no reason why you can't go to book project number 1 and assign a color label. So let's say book 1 is going to be red and book 2 is going to be blue. Book 3 is going to be, green and so on. All right. That way you can color match that heading with the color designation of the actual copies that you make. So just a visual way of kind of keeping yourself a little bit more organized. So hopefully that helps.
So Doug, are you making a copy of the collection, or is that collection referring back to the original copy that you had?
Yeah, so a collection, all it is kind of like a little address book that points to where your image is. And it doesn't matter if it's the original image or if it's a virtual copy. But the virtual copy is going to stay with the image. It's not like you can take that virtual copy and move it somewhere else. Okay? So that was a good question.
I have a follow-up question to that. Hopefully it's good.
Okay.
So, excuse me. One of the side questions is when you were mentioning colors, one of the things I was doing, because I'm like, yeah, I'm going through, 20 years of images. And really what I was doing, I had a set idea of books, and what I was trying to go through is like, I just want to go through and just flag them, and then I'll go through and decide what I'm going to do with them. But so I was trying the color flag thing, and I just wondered if that was the best way, because then I guess this is a simple file. I noticed that purple doesn't have a hotkey.
No.
So how do you assign hotkeys? Is there a way to do it, I'm guessing?
What do you mean assign hotkeys? Assign them to the color purple?
Yeah, like purple has no hotkey by
no.
default, it says here. So does that mean you can't assign one?
Right. It won't let you assign it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you're limited to 10 number keys.
Oh, I see.
and 5 of them are taken up by star ratings.
Okay.
So, and actually 6 because 0 is also a star rating.
Oh, okay. All right.
So yeah, no, there's no, but when you are in the grid mode, you can very easily, select which ones you want. And if you have the toolbar open, you just click on it at the bottom.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that way it allows you to just kind of like assign colors on the fly.
Yeah, what I noticed as I was going through photos, I go, oh, I completely forgot about that one. That would be fun. Let me get back to that for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing with colors and stars, and I think I've mentioned this in the past, is that they are very arbitrary assignments. Meaning the colors and the star ratings can represent whatever you want within any part of a given workflow. So, for example, I know some people will use the star rating when they are trying to decide out of all the images which ones they're going to spend time editing, and they'll rate one for, or no, I'm sorry, they'll rate like 5 stars for their really, really best ones that they want to, spend more time on. They might rate 3 for, that's all right, I'll spend time, I'll share it on Facebook, but it's not like my best, and this makes sense for them, okay? But then if you decide, within a collection, I also want to use star ratings to represent something. So what happens to that 3 and the 5? Well, at that point, if you're done with the editing part, the 3 and the 5 really have done their duty. And at that point, you can just reassign the star system for the next part of your workflow. You just got to understand that, different parts of the workflow will utilize this system in different ways, and whatever way makes sense to you. I don't know if that makes any sense because it's hard to describe.
Well, it makes sense, and like I said, you know what I was doing. I was just, flying through images, and you go, okay, you're kind of like flicking, and let's see what I can do with these guys later on. But when I hit that blue, purple, I can't sign a number. I was perplexed.
Oh yeah. Just when you select it, just at the bottom, and if let's see. Which one is it? If you don't see it, use the letter T to show the toolbar at the bottom. Okay. And then make sure that whatever image you want to assign a color to, make sure that image is selected, and then click on the color. All right. And to undo it, you just click on the color again. All right. Not to confuse the colors all the way over there. Okay. Let me, right here, these colors here. Okay. These are for your filter. So let's say I'll assign that one as red. I'll assign that one as yellow. And I'll assign this one as blue. Okay. What I can do is, where it says filter, I can filter out my collection based on specific criteria. So right now, my collection is filtered out according to all my picked images. So everything with a flag is the only thing that's showing. Okay. If I unclick that, it's going to show me everything in the folder. So I can say, okay, show me just the images that are flagged. I click on that and it's good. All right. You'll also see it along the top here when you have the attribute selected. Okay. And he says, okay, out of all of these, show me only the red images. Okay. All right. Show me the red and yellow images. Okay. Or show me just the blue images. Oop, that's purple. Okay. All right. And if you want, unselected, or you can say, okay, here's everything. All right. And then the last two is white and gray. All right. So gray is anything that is unlabeled. All right. So it's going to hide anything with a color label. So you don't see all the green. You don't see the red one. You don't see the blue one. Okay. And then the white one is anything with a custom label, which I don't have. All right. So
So begs the question, what's a custom label?
You know what? I remember reading about it years ago, and I never went beyond it because I said I'll never use it. You know, I don't need it. I'll never use it, and I never followed it up. But you know what? That's a good question. I should write a little note for myself and find out. What are custom labels? Okay.
Put you on Jeopardy, the stuffed duck version.
Yeah. Yeah. So. All right. So yeah, good to hear that, you know, you're actually working on you know, getting a little book together for yourself. Yeah, right now I'm just kind of toying around with just the images from Ireland. But I think I should probably get a second book together. Well, since I'm already going through my library, I might as well select other ones, you know. Like, you know, because I got a bunch of landscape stuff that I can probably fill a book with. So anyway, so for those of you working on a book, okay, when you get the book done, you need to share it with us. So if anybody wants to support you and buy your book, we'll need to know where to get it. Okay, so do that. I will be one that'd be very happy to purchase a book. So keep that in mind. All right. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. If anybody, not talking about, if anybody, Animal Haven of Greater New Haven is having its 75th anniversary on the North Haven Town Green in it's a long day, in July. And they are looking for vendors. So if anybody wants to set up a booth to either sell pictures or sell picture books, let me know and I'll get you in touch with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Or anybody who does pet photography, that might be a good venue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
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 So awesome. Cool. All right. Who else has a question for Stump the Duck? See what you started, Brian. Is this going to be a Stump the Duck?
That's what you have to rename this session to.
Stump the Duck. Okay.
Rename this session to that.
Oh, I got a question for you guys. How many of you after our sessions go back to YouTube and pull up the videos to go over?
I've done that a couple of times.
Okay.
I've done that a lot.
A lot. All right. So
I've done it.
the past, I don't know, 2-3 videos, I've actually started taking my time and editing into chapters so that you can quickly navigate to different talking points. Have you noticed that with
I didn't go in the last couple of weeks.
all right. My question to you is, you know, does that help? So, because it's a little time consuming, but I think it probably helps rather than have to scroll through a bunch of crapola.
It makes no difference to me because when I watch a video, I sort of scan, I sort of watch, and then if somebody's getting into something that, you know, I either know or they're talking about, hey, I did this, and you know, it's like, ever know some of these videos, they say, hey, how are you today? It's a great day. You know,
Yeah.
guys, I will skip you know, and I also pan where I go on the timeline and I see people. So if you're doing something that I know, I would probably scan to something that I don't know.
Okay.
So the chapters don't matter to me.
All right. Well, the chapters is kind of a quick way of doing that scan, because you can go. It'll when you hover over it, it will actually give you the what I write as the title for that particular chapter.
Oh, yeah.
You
Okay.
know, so you can read it and it says, okay, so in your case, because you attend these live sessions, you'll see the little blurb and it says, oh yeah, I remember that one. I don't need it, so I'll skip it. And you can see where the breaks are, so you can say, okay, I'm going to go to the next chapter. So I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier to find the stuff after the fact. So
Well, I have something to say about that too.
Oh.
Not the same thing. Well, as you may know, I was on vacation the last couple of weeks. I think
Yeah.
I missed the last two sessions. But I was at the session before that when you did the wine glass
yes.
flag.
Okay.
Grapes. So I just want to say again, as far as I'm concerned, that was a master class.
Mm.
And yeah, you fried it, but I just think it was so well done. And so the fact that you went back and added chapters to that, I think is neat. I haven't gotten back to it yet, but it's on my list to go through that
Awesome.
step by step. So, and I've used that. I've seen that chapter stuff on YouTube. I listen to a lot or watch a lot of live concerts,
Hmm.
music concerts, and when they take the time to do that, it's nice. Really
Yeah.
fun song in a concert, but and with you, if you're trying to find a specific topic, I think those kind of things are really great.
Yeah. Well, part of it is I'm hoping to attract. I would love to attract more people to these live sessions.
Right.
Not that I'm bored with you guys, mind you. I love the fact that you hang out with me on Monday nights, but I would like to see some fresh faces. And so I know there are people that are finding the videos and they're not commenting, but I know that they're watching them. And so hopefully it'll entice them to join the live sessions. But, I'm hoping that having these chapters makes it easier for people who come across my videos, and hopefully entices them to subscribe and eventually maybe drag them into the live Zoom sessions. So,
Well, the other thing I thought, following up on what I just said, is, one of the things I was thinking of doing, this was so good, I was going to share it with some folks and say, you ought to drop in, or I was thinking of ways to do that.
oh yeah, please do.
But you and I have had conversations. I had one with you several months ago. I said, hey, I'd like to be able to kind of organize these so when I think about, that video from 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, he said, well, I don't know if it's geared for that. And I think that the way the presentation you've had up until now, there's probably some truth to that if you're not sitting in on the live section, then going back and watching it cold may not have been as much a benefit.
Right.
But I think when you start adding this, what you've added, and the way that you did that light, that thing, that it lends itself to something that someone could sit down and watch on
Well,
their own.
yeah.
And that gets back into the, getting people to sign up.
Yeah, but on top of that, I'm hoping that this also helps with people being able to type into the search bar, something specific, and being able to return back the correct video because it found that keyword within the chapter profile. Which up to very recently has been missing because it's just. I literally record it and upload it with no work on my part,
I am curious about one thing as far as spiders, web searches, or whatever. If you create a tab, let's say you create a tab called Photoshop Mask or Lightroom mask. If somebody types in Google search Lightroom mask, maybe your video will come up.
Yeah, well,
Yes, it will
and
come up.
yeah, but in so what I've been doing up to this point is in the description part, I will write a description about what the topics were that we talked about. All right. The only difference is, like I said, the past 3 or 4 videos, I've actually been putting chapters instead of just a general descriptor, with actual timestamps. So the previously, I did load up the description with the keywords based on the topics that we hit. So if we did talk about masking, it was in there. It's just I was rather sloppy back then, still learning, what I can and can't do. And also because, like you mentioned, this is kind of just a free form way of communicating. It's not like some of these other videos where, it's very instructional. It's very geared to one specific lesson, and you're going to that video for that specific lesson. This we kind of float all over the place, and we cover a lot of stuff. There's very little rhyme or reason. So it's made organizing these videos a little bit difficult on my part. What I would like to do for you guys is actually create some very pointed content where, it says this one explains masks. The only reason I've kind of hesitated on doing that for the most part is because so many other creators are doing that. You can do a Google search on masking. You're going to find, 15 other people doing it. All right. But nobody that I know of is doing what I do with the live sessions and answering live your questions that you have and being able to walk through an entire process, which was kind of the niche that I wanted to fill, is because, I can watch a video about masking and it can show me, how to do it, but, when to do it or why to do it tends to be left out. The other thing that gets left out in a lot of these how-to videos is, going back to the why. Why should I do that? But hopefully what I've given you is the ability to look at an image and understand why I do certain things with the editing, and then show you how to do it. So hopefully that's been helpful. But it's hard to categorize what I'm doing with these videos and making it fit into the format that has pretty much already been established by other content creators. So I don't know. Like I said, I want to make it easy for you guys, but if it's not something that's needed, why even bother, right?
Wrong. Let me say something. Well, I got questions and now I got answers.
Okay.
So you're kind of wandering into a little bit of my wheelhouse.
All right.
What I do on a day-to-day basis. And this is just an observation I've noticed. Google loves to answer questions. That if you really want to get rank in Google and all that stuff, you write content so that you're answering a question. That's just the content side of it. But what's also I've been noticing lately that Google has been doing is that if you ask a question and that question could be answered in a video, Google has a way of dropping you right in on that spot. So if you've got an hour-long video and there's 20 seconds on how to upload an SFTP from the Qt FTP program, bam, right there they found it. And what you're doing with these chapters helps with that. So
That's true, and you know, I'm glad you mentioned that because I have noticed that some of the searches I've done will give me the video with that section highlighted, and yeah, duh, I never put two and two together, but yeah, that makes sense.
That's another thing. I don't know exactly how to code this or how it works, but another thing I've seen in addition to what you were saying about the chapters is, again, I've seen it with the music, but the same thing applies, is down in the description, there'll be almost a table of contents. And it'll have like, you know, at 104, it's,
Yeah, so yeah, those are the timestamps.
and those will take you right into where it is on the video.
Yeah, that's actually how you create the chapters. You just
Okay.
put the timestamp. You have to start off with the time, and then you put whatever descriptor in the description. So what happens, and you have to start off with the 00.
Okay.
All right, otherwise it won't recognize it. YouTube reads that, understands that is a chapter directory, and will automatically assign them. So yeah, that's all I do is after I upload it, I'll spend, you know, however many minutes scrubbing through and finding those breakpoints that I want, you know, to start a chapter. And I will say, okay, what is it that I'm talking about? Okay, so there's my descriptor. So I read off the time, I put it in the description as a table. And when I hit save, YouTube does the rest automatically. I don't have to do anything, you know, so it's kind of nice in that respect. Makes it easy.
Yep.
You know, so what I should do is one more task to add to myself is every time I start a new topic, I should write a little note to myself what the topic is, you know, so makes it easy to go back. But yeah.
Well, that would be a good way to think, because now we just said the way you want to think is think in terms of
Answering questions. Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's the title of your whatever your topic. And because the real secret of all this SEO and visibility is trying to figure out how to ask that question, you know, and
right.
if you do that, you're golden.
Right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, you know, I appreciate the feedback. It helps me out a lot. Because the other thing that I want to do is I would like to be able to create Patreon specific content for you guys as well, which leads me to the next thing. Next Monday, if you are a Patreon member, because I think all of you are, I will be doing, since we have, you know, an extra week this month, I'll be sending out a link for a Patreon only session next Monday, same time. And I don't know if there's, excuse me, if there's any specific topic you want me to cover, but, you know, I can go into detail on whatever topic you want. I'm open for it right now. Otherwise, I'll just pick something and we'll see where it goes. But I'll be sending out the information later this week, okay? But I just wanted to make you aware.
I have two potential topics.
Okay?
Talking to Thompson here tonight. Don't say anything all year. Can't shut him up.
No, by all means.
So the first one, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but and it has to do with the book project. I have a rather iconic photo that I took in 2001 with a 2-megapixel camera, and I have managed to, in the past, play around with it and got it to print, so it looked kind of okay, almost 18 by 24.
Wow.
But what I did with it, well, it was a hazy. Well, anyway, what I want to do is I went through and using what I knew back in 2004. I spent a lot of time on this photo, and I made it so it worked. I made it look like an old-timey photo a little bit. So anyway, I'd like to, one of the subjects, because it's a picture of the Twin Towers about a month before they disappeared.
Okay.
So I was thinking that, and I'd like to reapproach that. And what are things one can do with a really old 2-megapixel camera, and what are the better ways that I can, I look back at that photo and I'm not sure how I got rid of the brown grass and turned it green.
Oh,
I know I didn't
yeah.
know about layers. I don't know if layers were back there then, but
Yeah, later. Yeah.
but I didn't really learn about layers till I learned about duck. So
Well, here's my question. Is it a JPEG or is it a RAW file? If it's that old, you were probably JPEG. Yeah.
Look into Topaz Gigapixel AI.
Yeah, I've going to use that as my first thing to go back and run it through both of those, because I used to have something called Imagineer or some other Photoshop software back from that time, but
Mhm.
that's one of the things I'm going to do is make it bigger. But as I was looking at it, because well, I remember it's August 5th. It was a very hot and hazy day.
Yeah.
And so my challenge was trying to get rid of the haze, and I guess I'm wondering, because it's a 2-megapixel and it's not raw, is there things that you can do to, put more stuff in there, even though is that maybe what the Topaz stuff would do for you, or?
That's where I'd start.
Yeah.
That's where I started with some of my stuff. It adds stuff, and then you can take stuff out later when you crop or do whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, the first order is to make it larger so you can actually work on it a little easier. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about the fact that it's a JPEG. So you're starting off fairly limited, but having more pixels to work with from being upscaled might help it, especially when it comes to sharpening for any details. And then the rest, it's just, a little bit of experimentation, seeing what you can do to push the pixels one way or another, So if you're interested, in doing a live edit on it, once you upscale it, send it to me, and maybe we'll do, I can walk through like my interpretation of it and see what you get out of it.
Good. My second thing for a workshop next week, you remember the doctor, the sleep doctor?
Yes.
Anyway, I did a photo shoot for them. They opened a new office, and so I went over and took some pictures of their new sleep lab.
Okay.
And this was, I guess, it was a low budget shoot, as you can imagine. But anyway, what I bumped up against was, boy, taking picture, I guess it would be architectural photographing. It was a really small room, and you're trying to balance the thing that it's wide angle versus the distortion, and what can you do to fix that? And as it turned out for me, I was lucky I had my phone with me, because I have a new phone and it has a wider angle lens in it. So, because I did and I guess that's the question. What is, if you're going to be shooting interiors with a real camera, well, what's the best camera lens to get? I mean, I have mine didn't seem to do the deal with my camera. That's why I said I was lucky.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing of, setting up in a small bedroom so that it, trying to balance the distortion versus getting everything in. And anyway, It was
Surprisingly enough, when it comes to interior shots like that, a cell phone camera actually is a great camera to use. For one, it's small and can fit just about anywhere in the room, including way back into a corner, so you can get a much wider perspective. The trick is, with any camera, it doesn't matter if it's a SLR or a cell phone camera, but when photographing interior spaces, what we tend to do is we don't shoot from head level. We actually shoot from about gut level, maybe even a little bit lower. All right, because when you're shooting from head level, if you're shooting straight ahead, you're going to get a lot of ceiling. So that's a lot of blank space. So our immediate inclination is to take the camera and angle it down to show more of the interior space and cut out a lot of the ceiling. But what happens is all your uprights now do this. Okay?
Yep.
Or yeah, they do this. All right. So now your perspective is a little bit wonky, and it says, okay, well that looks really forced. It looks, you can actually see what the lens is warping. So a lot of times, well, we have things that we can correct it. We can go into Lightroom, we can go into Photoshop, and we can say, okay, these two should be up and down. You draw your reference lines and it straightens it out. But what happens is it'll stretch the top and it'll squash the bottom in order to kind of correct for it. And you end up losing a lot on the edges during that correction. So even though you're shooting wide, by the time you apply that correction, we've already cut down. So for that reason, a lot of real estate photographers will shoot lower and position it so that all your uprights are up and down. All right, and that just alleviates a lot of the problems. The trick is finding a location within the room that best showcases that space. You don't want to be shooting from, like, for example, behind furniture, because it looks weird. You want to kind of find the most empty corner you can find and kind of go into there. A lot of times, depending on the collection of images that you create for like a walkthrough, for example, of like a house for a realtor, you may do it from entryways. So that way, when it's planned out and all these points are plotted, it looks like a natural walk-in into the space rather than just floating somewhere else. But the great thing about the cell phone images is because not only is the camera small, but the lens architecture is very, very small. So you get a much deeper depth of field than you would with an SLR lens. And that kind of works to your favor when doing interior real estate shots. On top of that, a lot of cell phone cameras have built-in HDR. So you don't have to worry about like windows getting blown out. Because the software within the camera will kind of balance out between the interior lighting and the exterior lighting and do automatic HDR for you right in camera. Right. My suggestion, though, is if your camera has RAW capabilities, is use the RAW capabilities. So that way, if there are any blown out highlights or any, really, really deep recessed shadows, you could be able to kind of like open up those shadows or drop the highlights down a little bit more in post-production. Easier on a RAW than you would, like a JPEG file coming off the cell phone. So that would be my suggestion.
And that's one thing I've been doing. This new Samsung 22 Plus I got about 4 or 5 months ago, and I found that it comes with something they call Expert RAW. So it comes with its own RAW camera, and it's got a built-in link right into Lightroom. what I've been playing with. In fact, that's when I took to Florida this time. I didn't take my camera. I was playing
Yeah,
around,
yeah,
seeing how that worked, and so.
yeah. So for typical real estate shots, I will use a super wide angle lens.
And what,
All right.
what does that mean by?
You're
Like,
about 10,
Is that
16 millimeter in that vicinity. All right. You don't want to go into like the fisheye, the 6 and the 8 millimeter, because those really just warp a lot, you know. But about 12, 16 millimeters is great. Because it literally, it can look around corners. It really, really does. You have to be careful with that. All right. But if you don't have something like that, the other thing you can do is turn your camera into portrait mode. All right. So that way you can get more up and down than left and right and do a pano. Typically usually about 3 to 4 shots is all you need in order to get the entire room. The only thing is you're going to end up with an image that is huge because you're stitching 4 full frame, or full APS-C sized images in order to create 1 mega image. But, it makes editing out the details a little bit easier too. So if you don't have a super wide film or lens, that's what I suggest is turn it sideways and do a pano. Obviously you should have it on a tripod. You should have it on a tripod either way, because a lot of interior shots tend to be low light, so you want to be able to use the longer shutters,
Right.
unless you're lighting the space. And that's a whole different can of worms.
What I didn't want to get into.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the final thing. What I've been playing around with is this camera. I mean, my phone is a camera, and what I've found is it's great for interiors like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not so good for landscape outside, because the camera, the lenses tend to be extremely wide angle by. So the other thing that seems to be good is it's really good at picking up images in crap light. I mean, the amount of light I
Yeah.
play on in other situations,
Yeah.
it's just amazing, and so yeah, I may not go out and buy a lens for my camera, just use that for interiors and keep the other
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. If you're not shooting for a magazine, or that's going to require high-end images, why bother? Absolutely. Use the cell phone.
Well, I was trying to use the cell phone on vacation when I was trying to take pictures outside when I was on a boat, and no.
Yeah. It's got
Take a real camera.
it does have its limitations, but there are times where that cell phone camera takes better pictures than a DSLR.
I guess that's what I learned that night.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Any other questions? None? All right, this is going to be short. I don't have any words of wisdom to share either, so. All right.
I will send you through Facebook Messenger my email address if you can send me the deck. What I'm going to do is probably, I found a exposure triangle that I'm just going to go over very briefly and say we'll go into detail over time. But
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, I'm going to, because some of these people are just cell phone people, and I'm going to say it's behind the hood, and it's like, there are 3 things that go into the exposure: ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And if you change one, you get to change one or the other two, and show the line of you know, 0 for as a rule best exposure, and you know, the -1 +1 for doubling doubling exposure, increasing by 1 stop, and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I find when I start getting into like the math of exposure, people tend to tune out.
I would just say it increases.
Yeah.
The exposure, you know, increases or decreases without. I don't want to make it too difficult. What happened was the last session, 2 people asked me about the mode dial. Oh, what do I do? You know, for
Okay.
sports, you know, the sports.
Have you ever attended any of my workshops where I discussed the tortoise and the hare? Do you recall that one?
Because it sounds familiar. Go ahead.
Okay. So typically when I teach anything about the exposure triangle now, I like I said, I try to avoid math because it just goes over people's heads. So I try to make it a little bit more relevant. And I start off with ISO. ISO being sensitivity of the sensor, and it's relative to how much light is available. So I normally break it down to if it's very bright and you're outside, ISO automatically goes to 100. As soon as you step inside, ISO goes automatically to 400. Okay, so that gives you 2 numbers as a starting point. So before you're even picking up the camera, you've already set 1 number, which is your ISO number. And as you already know, typically, unless the light changes drastically, you're not going to mess around with the ISO on your camera, right? You set it and forget it kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So once that's out of the way, I say, okay, now I want you to look at what you are photographing and ask yourself this question. Is the subject a tortoise or a hare? Is it moving or is it slow? Okay. If it's a tortoise, what's the priority? Aperture. If it's a hare, what's the priority? Shutter. Okay, so I approach it that way, and I said, okay, well, obviously, if it's a hare, it's going to be relative to how fast. Okay, and then you're going to set, once you set that, what's left? Aperture, and you just adjust that until the meter says 0. And most people seem to get it fairly quickly.
Thank you.
So.
I first learned this back in the day of film when I was in college, and I had a hard time.
Oh yeah.
The triangle, and then it was ASA, not ISO.
Yep.
And the only thing I was ever able to catch on was aperture and f/22, because for shooting in a studio, because I took up TV. Shooting in the studio, we had to do f/22, and I understood the idea of depth of field, and you needed a lot of light at f/22.
Yeah. Yeah, I had, back in the film days, I had the same struggle. The way it was being taught is that teeter-totter, kind of like, if you increase this, you decrease that in order to get that equilibrium. But nobody explained, well, what number do I begin with? Okay, I know it's supposed to kind of balance out according to what the meter, all right, but nobody ever gave me any real world scenarios saying, well, if you're chasing after a toddler, you better be at 1/500th of a second. You know, so I never made that connection. All I knew is some arbitrary shutter needed to balance with some arbitrary aperture that was kind of sort of related in some way to an ASA number. I couldn't figure it out.
I guess you never bought a camera from me.
Why do you say that, Alan?
Well, I was a manager for the camera shops of New Britain.
Oh, I didn't. I never
Okay.
did
Okay, so I managed at various points in time, Westfire's Mall Store, Weathersfield, and a few others. And one of the things that when those cameras started coming out, was basically shutter priority with basically using the reference of if a person is walking, that's about 125th of a second, you can stop them from walking. Using that as a reference point, anything faster than that, well, then you correspondingly move your shutter speeds forward.
that.
So, 2/50th of a second or 500th for a race car or that kind of thing. Okay, and then at that time too, your f-stops were also on your lens. So you could look on your lens and say, okay, between this number that's 2.8, between this yellow line and this yellow line, you're only going to be in focus for 1.5 inches.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you'll notice here that with the f6 with 16 and 16 on both sides of 2.8, you got an orange line. Well, everything from 10 feet, everything from, well, let's say 6 feet in front of the subject to about 6 feet behind the subject is going to be in focus at the time. See? But I guess you never bought a camera from me.
No, I didn't.
What was the name of the store, Alan? What was the name of the store?
Mall, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I was at West Farmers Mall. I was downtown Hartford. I was Cromwell. And then when we opened up our quote unquote professional store in the Weathersfield, right across from the library there. And then after that, I went into the one hour photo business for about 2 years.
Oh, you're way before my time. You know what would never believe? I lived in the New Haven area.
And that was all after I was a wedding photographer.
Oof.
Back in the 70s and in the 80s, we had Carver Photo in Hamden. Does anybody remember that?
No,
Maybe
doesn't
one?
that
Okay.
doesn't ring a bell. No.
Okay. They were the big camera store. I took one course with them, one Saturday course with them. But they were big. And then there was a chain. They had one in Meriden and one in
Oh,
they had one in Boston.
was it Ritz camera?
Ritz.
Yeah.
Ritz camera.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to remember where I bought my first camera. It may have been Ritz. I think my second camera I actually got from Milford Camera. Now Milford Photo, Milford Camera back in the day. So that was my AU1 program. Canon
So, Bill,
AU1 program.
Bill, I want to say one last thing about your course and talk, because you said they're seniors, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, what we've been talking about f-stop, I've been involved with darkrooms and photography for 55 plus years, and I used to understand all that stuff. But I noticed last week when Duck was talking about some numbers, my eyes tend to glaze over anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I like I never heard the hare and the tortoise, but boy, the more you can stay away from those numbers.
I will stay away from the numbers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I said, most of these people are, now into cell phone photography.
Yep.
But I just want to explain, okay, here's what's on the dial. If you don't want to think about it, then you see that icon for the sports guy, go ahead and use that one. If you see something for landscape, do that. But this is a little bit And like I said, a little bit of what's going on behind the scene in case you ever want to use the creative modes.
Yeah. Let's see if I can. Oh yeah, here are. Oof, yeah. This is going back. Let me see if let me share this. This is going back. Where is this? 2014. Lots of numbers in here. Your camera meter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, that's the one you showed us.
Yeah. So this was the presentation, how a light meter works. Let's see. Do I have the tortoise and the hare in here? I think I have. Yeah. All right. So, let's see. Step. And these are just the slides. Where are we? Yeah. So it starts off with the sensor. All right. I don't know. Oh, wow. This is really old. Look at this light. So light quality. Step one is, light quality determines your baseline. And then we go into setting your ISO. Yeah, I mean, this is really convoluted. I don't know if you want all
No,
of
I
these
don't.
slides,
Let me show you. Hold on a second. Let me show you
but
what
but maybe you can find something. But
here's let's see if I can bring this up.
I might even have a simplified version of this. But this is talking about the tortoise and the hare and determining which one, depth of field, things like that. And then, of course, the last thing you do is you chimp it and adjust. Oh my God. Let's see. Do I have a distilled version? Oh yeah, here we go. I think here we go. 6 steps to proper exposure. You might be able to use the last I think 10 slides or so.
Okay.
So all right, so 6 steps to proper exposure. Step 1, determine the light quality. Is it light? Is it dark? Step 2, based on the amount of light, you'll set your ISO. All right, and what you can do is you can kind of sort of explain the 100 outdoor, 400 indoor kind of thing. Then step 3, determine the action. Is it fast or slow? And then from there, if it's slow, you set your aperture and you can give examples. If it's fast, you set your shutter speed and you can give examples. And then after you've set that, what's left is whatever's left over. So if you start with aperture, what's left is your shutter. If you start with shutter, what's left is your aperture. Zero out your.
Isn't it easier to teach newbies this one rule? This is what I did when I taught at yeah. I should not do a hike on a Monday. Oh God, I did bike riding yesterday. When I did the presentation on photojournalism to the flagpole photography group, I said, okay, 2 rules. If it's sports or anything with action, you want to go with shutter speed.
Yep.
If it's anything else, you want to go with aperture priority.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much, you know.
Mm.
So if it's fast moving, definitely shutter, you know. So the nice thing about learning it this way is it applies to manual, it applies to shutter priority, and it applies to aperture priority. All right? Because looking at, you know, step 4 and step 5, okay? Your step 4 is going to determine which priority, all right, whether you prioritize it manually or whether you prioritize it by moving the dial on the camera. Either way, you're prioritizing, you know, that particular action, you know, and then what's left over. So by the time they get to needing to meter for that proper exposure, they've already got two numbers already in place, the ISO and whatever their priority is. So it just leaves one factor left. And I find a lot of people are, you know, grasp that a lot easier than, you know, trying to figure out how do we balance this three-sided seesaw.
What do you mean by chimp and adjust?
Chimp and adjust. You chimping is looking at the back of your camera at the screen. It's referred to as chimping. And you know, if it's too dark, you brighten it up. If it's too bright, you darken it down. You adjust and reshoot.
These last slides will be good. I'll
Yeah.
give you my email.
Yeah. All right. I'll send them to you. Right now, and here they're set up as JPEGs, so I can just send you the JPEGs if you want.
Okay.
So, okay, awesome.
You know, it's funny what you said about sometimes the cell phone is better. We had the workshop at North Haven Camera Club on Saturday, and we had different light stations, just like you and Sue did that time. Somebody had fluorescent lights. Were you the one with the fluorescent lights?
I brought some fluorescents.
Okay.
Yeah.
And somebody else did a different kind.
Yeah.
Well, somebody had a workstation where they bought lights from Home Depot.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to spend the money, you do it this way. And we were having trouble setting up the lighting for it. And just for ha-has, I took a picture with my cell phone, and that was the best picture I took of the model. But then when I looked at the information, it said f-stop 1.2.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I mean, you know, it's not, they're not the best lenses. I don't like the way people look on a cell phone.
Yeah, I guess they're not. It's not a normal lens. It's a wide angle lens. Nobody looks good with a wide angle lens. I don't care who you are.
But it handles lighting better than a DSLR.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just, you know,
Well,
must be the way they make the electronics now.
No, it's all to do with physics of the way light. Look at all this. Light has to travel all, you know, down this long barrel through all of these, you know, lenses that bend and alter that light. Compared to this tiny little lens, which the optical elements are, you know, what, as thin as a credit card, you know. So how much does the light have to travel here? Barely at all. So that's why, you know. The downside is that even though it's going through that tiny little piece of glass, it's also hitting a very tiny little sensor.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get the quality.
I finally bought mirrorless. I bought I'm happy with the DSLR that I have, the the 70D, 70D. I'm happy with that. And I wanted a mirrorless because I'm in the woods half the time. I wanted something light
Yeah.
and something with newer electronics. So I went with the R10. That's they've come out with the R50, which is more of a beginner's camera, and there are a few things that doesn't do. So I went with the R10. Going with an R8 or R6 would be very expensive.
Right.
I just feel because if I didn't already have a camera that I was happy with, I would go with that. And the only thing that a full frame would buy me is low light, and I'm not in low light that often. And I need the crop sensor sometimes more than I would need low light. Like if I'm using my what is it, 75 to 300 millimeter lens. Yes, I would like to go to 406 millimeters.
Mm-hmm.
So the crop sensor does help me.
Right. Yeah, but the new mirrorless cameras have so many features that a DSLR does not have that it just, it's hard pressed to, for somebody needing a camera now, it's hard pressed for them to go into a DSLR. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I was thinking of, in case somebody asks me what they should get if they want to not do a cell phone, it's like, okay, go out and buy a Rebel T7 for, you can get on sale for $399. But it's like, if you want to do that, would you be happy with it in a few years? And maybe.
Yeah, I have a hard time recommending cameras because, yeah, you're right. First of all, are they going to stick with it?
Yes.
So if that's a guessing game, you don't know.
Yes.
How much do they want to put into it? If they just want a weekend camera and they're, just want something that's no fuss, then yeah, a T series is perfect. But maybe they're going to be a little bit more advanced like us that says, oh, I want to be able to take pro quality, even though I'm not quote unquote a pro. I want to be able to take pro quality images. So you're going to need pro quality equipment. So it's hard to predict. But let me tell you, if the consideration is saving money, then yeah, I would steer them into something a little bit older or something in the consumer rate. But if they're serious, some of these mirrorless cameras are hard pressed to turn down just because of the features.
Well, that picture I showed you with Meriden with Hubbard Park, that was taken with my new mirrorless.
Yeah. And what kills me is when mirrorless was first starting to take off, a lot of the camera manufacturers could have taken some of that technology and implemented it into the DSLRs, but they never did. I don't know why. Face detect, eye detect, So.
What was interesting was I took the camera to North Haven Camera Club a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And I took pictures of people, and a couple of people, I said, hey, it's my new mirrorless, and a couple of people who are older. And let me see the camera, let me see the camera. And two people said, oh, I don't want to do heavy cameras anymore.
Right. Yeah, and even mirrorless cameras, they have different weights. You can get a big, full frame mirrorless that's going to be, big and chunky. But
well, this one I wanted because I have the big and chunky.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the 70D. And I traded in this was on sale with the trade-in, so I traded in the used, um, 5D that I had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I talked to the guy, I said, well, what do you think I should trade in? And he said, trade in the 5D because it was older. There were some things wrong with it. And the 70D was, I bought that one secondhand and the person had hardly used it.
Right.
And so it's like, keep the 70D.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the earlier mirrorless, I've tried out a couple of them, especially like the Olympus ones, and they had very small bodies. They felt so uncomfortable in my hand. I was impressed by the technology they had, but the form factor, felt so small. I couldn't get used to that.
I have a grip in a camera.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I like about the can. In fact, they said in the review, if you want the cheaper M50 or the R50 versus the R10,
Mm-hmm.
they said the R50 did not have that good a grip.
Right.
Plus, they weren't doing the trade-in value on the trade-in on the R50. So I have to have a grip. In fact, that's why I even bought the what do you call it? To have two batteries,
Mm-hmm.
the extension.
Yeah, battery
That's
pack. Yeah,
the what?
the battery pack.
I bought a battery pack
Yeah.
for the 70D because I just wanted that grip when I'm doing portrait.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way. Small camera feels foreign in my hands. All my cameras, even back in the film days, I used to get the auto winder because it expanded on the size of the camera. And, like, for example, I mentioned that, my first camera was the Pentax K1000. That's the only one that I never got an auto winder for. I had that for a number of years. That was a good sized camera. It wasn't no lightweight little rinky dink. The Canon A1 relative to the Pentax was a little bit smaller, right? And I remember getting a auto winder for that just in order to give it a little bit of bulk. And ever since then, all my cameras have always had the battery packs. One, just to extend the life of the camera on an outing, but also because, like you said, you can rotate it and still have that, heavy duty grip for it. So, although now I'm finding that as I shoot events, I have it in a bracket with the flash.
I have that too.
All my images are consistently slanted. I can batch process all my images and do this with the crop. It'll fix them all. It's at 1 to 2% incline.
Oh, by the way, the R10 that I bought because it's nice and light, and that also not only did that replace the 5D that I traded in, but it also replaced a 3-year-old point and shoot
Mm-hmm.
that I traded in at Hunt's because again it didn't have the grip. And
Yeah.
so this R10 is a good replacement for maybe a DSLR I don't want to use, and a point and shoot that just didn't have it. Plus, the other thing I like about the R10 is the point and shoot. The menu was very, it was just hard to deal with. Whereas with the R10, it has your typical Canon type of menu in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about, your screen, your options, your menu. And it's like, oh, good, it has this. Perfect. Yeah.
Right. So, cool. All righty, gentlemen. It's been a good session. Alan's already gone. Bryan, if you want me to edit that image, let me know. Shoot me a text or shoot me an email. Bill, I'll. Do you have Google Drive by any chance?
I have Google Drive. No, my Google Drive is Bill1820.
All right. Well,
It's email.
yeah. Send me an email because I think this presentation is in a Google slide. So that way you can just copy it over and edit it and keep the changes you want and so on.
Okay,
that might
good.
be easier than working off of JPEGs.
I'll send you an email from my Google email.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
As always, it was a pleasure, and I really appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.